put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, how's everybody doing? Thank you for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and for the next 90 minutes, we are going to talk about all things photography. As always, do me a favor, please hit that thumbs up, it only takes a second, and let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. As always, guys, you know the drill. Facebook, Twitter, they're the fastest ways to get the word out. I will go ahead, I will share the link in the chat window for you right here. Feel free to pass that along. Or, of course, you can go ahead and hit that share button, like right down there, and that'll get the job done. And already, I know we got a bunch of people here from all over the world, so please check in. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're from. Not gonna lie, I like to geek out. It's always cool to see where people are coming from. And I will tell you right now, I've only got a few questions lined up. I got a little bit of business stuff to take care of for you tonight. So it's a good night to get your questions answered. Start typing. If you're here, hopefully there's something that you could use some help with your photography. So type away and let's dig into it tonight, all right? So let's start with workshops, demos, talks, lectures, all that kind of cool stuff coming up. For those of you that maybe have not seen me before, maybe you saw me this week at PhotoPlus, so you're kind of new to my stuff here on YouTube, let me just show you how you can go ahead and you can find out where I'm going to be presenting, where I'm going to be speaking, so that hopefully we have a chance to meet in the near future. If you visit my website, which is simply joeedelman.com, all you have to do is click on speaking/events at the top. It is going to load my speaking calendar here, which will drop into the page, and this gets updated routinely. In fact, I just booked another speaking engagement for December here in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, so I will have to add that tonight. That'll get added in. But coming up, I've got two important ones. This coming weekend, I just finished in New York, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But this coming weekend, I'm going to be out in Linwood, Washington, which is basically Seattle area. It's right above Seattle, for the Ken Moore Digital Photo Expo. So this is my first time there, and what I'm told, this is like one of the biggest photography events on the East Coast. Apparently they get like 5,000 or 6,000 people that go through this event in 2 days. So it's held at the Linwood Convention Center. I'm going to be there both days, Saturday and Sunday, and I gotta say, you know, geeking out here, there's a pretty hardcore list of speakers that are going to be presenting. I am going to be doing 2 different presentations. On Saturday, I will be, let me get down there to 2 o'clock, and I'll show you. I'm going to be doing fashion portraits with small lights, which I've done at a lot of my in-store demos. We've got an awesome model to work with, great makeup artist. And then on Sunday, I will be switching it up just a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a presentation about lighting wizardry. Studio lighting is much easier than you think, but you guys hear me talk about that all the time, but this is a chance for me to prove it to people firsthand in person. And then 1 week later, so let's just back up on that here. I'm going to hit that back button a couple times. 1 week later, next week on Saturday, November 9th, I'm going to be in Dallas, Texas at, well, not at Competitive Camera, but I'm going to be doing an event for Competitive Camera. We're going to be doing it at the Slate Production Studios, which is really cool. 2 talks that day, beautiful portraits with simple lighting, which is actually strictly about portraits, not fashion portraiture. And then in the afternoon, we're going to do my bold fashion portraits and have a lot of fun with that. And then I've just added a talk here in Allentown, Pennsylvania on December 12th. So that will be the last of my talks for this year. I'll have information going up on the site this week, so I hope to see you there. Quite a few of you had asked me about the talk that I did out at Pixel Photo Fest in Cleveland, the one that was called Don't Be Afraid to Suck. Well, the cool part is I'm going to be doing that talk here in Allentown. Hopefully we'll be able to record that, and by the beginning of the year, I'll be able to share that with you. So I'm kind of stoked about that one coming up. So this past week, and as you saw in the kind of preview and thumbnail for tonight's Talk Chat, this past week was PhotoPlus. PhotoPlus Expo in New York City is probably the largest of all the photography trade shows that happens in the United States. It was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday all day. Starts like 10 in the morning, goes till 5 in the afternoon. They even have different events and things like that in the evening. And it's cool. Let's start there. It's just cool. So first of all, you know, you're in a huge, huge convention center. All of the major camera manufacturers are there, except for one. We'll talk about that in a second. Not only is there a lot of stuff for you to see as an attendee, there are presenters, people like myself, doing presentations and teaching. There are all kinds of giveaways and swag and all that stuff. And there's also a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, which most people are not aware of. So pretty much all of the major manufacturers and even some of the smaller vendors, they do a lot of meetings with other manufacturers, other vendors. And they do meetings with a lot of the media, the bigger photography blogs like Petapixel or DIYphotography.net. They were there shooting both video and also doing interviews for stories. So there's a lot of moving and shaking that happens at these shows. It's pretty, you know, pretty busy, pretty crazy, a lot of fun. So I thought I would share with you a little bit of what I did first. And I have a little tiny video clip to show you. And then I will kind of give you my thoughts on the show, give you my thoughts on trade shows, that kind of stuff. And then we'll get to your questions. So by all means, type in your questions. I see a couple of you commenting here that were in New York. It's great to see you guys. I appreciate your coming out. So I did 2 things at PhotoPlus this year. Actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. I did 3 things. One, on Thursday morning, before the show opened, 8 a.m., I did a natural light photo walk. And this is a great example of a lesson that every photographer needs to know, every photographer needs to pay attention to, and it's just the reality of photography. We met all of the attendees. We had 15 people in the walk. That was the maximum. We sold out. And as we were preparing in the Crystal Palace, is what they call the big entranceway to PhotoPlus, I was telling everybody that we were going to be going outside to where there's an area with lots of concrete and interesting lines and geographic shapes, and that we were going to be working in a lot of very soft, very natural light. Now, everything about photography and everything about good lighting for photography is about chasing the light and finding the best light. So after I gave everybody this whole breakdown and gave them their assignments, because you do a photo walk with me, you have assignments. It's not just go, let's take some pretty pictures. Oh, hell no, you don't learn anything that way. I give them assignments. So after I gave them the assignments, told them what the plan was, we head down the stairs, the escalator, to go outside. And as I'm looking at the glass windows with the metalwork that they have in the Crystal Palace, the sun was coming up over the tops of some buildings in the east, and there was this incredibly golden, but very direct, harsh sunlight coming through the windows. And I was like, guys, this is what photography was all about. Forget everything I said about soft light. We have to work with this light. So we walked over to these windows and we started shooting inside. Then we moved outside and we wound up doing the entire photo walk, everything but one spot and one shot. We did it in hard, harsh, direct sunlight. And it was the most gorgeous light that you could imagine. So I'm going to switch over here, and actually what I want to do is I'm going to turn this one off, go all the way up here to the top. So just to give you an idea of the settings, this is where we were working outside of the convention hall, where again, you can see it's basically all concrete and glass. And look carefully at her face up on camera, if the model's up on the stairs there. You can see just how gorgeous and how subtle that light is falling off of her. Here's another shot where we were working. And again, you can see just how nice and how soft and how subtle. So one of the assignments that I gave all of the attendees was for them to have to shoot in black and white. When digital came along, it became so simple to look at a picture and say, yeah, it's kind of really not that great. Let's click the black and white button and, ooh, look, we have a cool picture because we're not used to seeing black and white pictures as much. The problem with that is we wind up with a lot of really bad black and white images today, right? So one of the tasks that I gave this group was to actually shoot in black and white so that they were seeing the images in black and white to know if it was going to make a good black and white image. Secondly, they had to create a little fashion story around what we were doing. And we had my model, Sophia, who is a model with the Elite Agency in New York. So I got to work with an amazing model. She does a ton of fitness work. She was outstanding. We had her climbing on the metalwork. We had her dressed in kind of like a Matrix type outfit. It was this long coat with tails and a corset middle, these long black pants and suede boots, and she had her hair up in this really tall ponytail. So I don't get to shoot much when I do these photo walks, but I had to grab a couple shots because the lighting in this day in particular, it was just to die for. And I want to remind you guys and point out as I show you these pictures, this is all done with direct, unmodified, not diffused light. Everybody is always like chasing, wanting soft light, trying to find soft light. I want to show you guys, you can do amazing images in harsh direct light. So one of my first shots here is this one you see here, just a simple portrait. So this was actually, she's inside the glass windows, direct sun coming right at her. You can see that seriously hard shadow that comes down off of her jawline that further helps to define her face. After that, this shot here, basically just standing up in the same spot. So we're still inside for these few shots here. I love the lines. I love the muted shadows in the background, having the diagonal line and the handrail in the foreground as a frame. Notice, guys, the careful placement. If you're going to put your model's hands on handrails like that, you don't want them to actually grab the handrail. You want them to set their hands elegantly on the handrail. Another shot here. This was outside in the direct sunlight, and another version, just, you know, this harsh diagonal light that was hitting. We did the shot with the shadow directly behind her, and then we had her kind of jumping off the curb. I will tell you right now, here's another one of her coming off the curb. The attendees at my workshop, I know for a fact there are people that were at the workshop that actually have shots that are much cooler than what I came up with. They had some absolutely gorgeous shots. So I'm looking forward to seeing them kind of showing up on social media over the next couple days, because I told them they weren't allowed to post for a couple days. They had to wait a few days to do their editing and really work through the shots. So that was the natural light fashion walk that we did, or photo walk. And then inside the hall, each day at 12:30, I did a demo for Olympus on the Olympus stage. And I wanted to do something this year that was a little bit different. I've done some light painting in the past, and you guys have seen those shows. But what I wanted to do this year, let me switch over here. What I wanted to do was to try and incorporate, let me start there. To try and incorporate some things that I have done in the past, and also some things that I've never done before. So this is the Olympus booth. I was very fortunate. I had a great turnout. So those of you that are here, Doug, and there's a couple other people here that have checked in, Danny, a bunch of you that made it out to the show that said hi to me. It was great to meet you. Also, obviously, thank you so much for coming out. Keep in mind that Olympus just released the EM5 Mark III camera last week. So the theme of this booth was break free, and it was very adventure oriented. In fact, only one of my pictures was on the booth this time. And if you look really, really close, you can see it back in the bottom right-hand corner of the shot. Steve, it was great to meet you too. Thanks for coming out. So in fact, actually, this shot that you're looking at was from the Thursday talk. You can see there's a rock climbing wall in the background. They had two world-class rock climbers that were at the show that were actually climbing that rock wall. Very, very cool stuff. So you can also see it's a really, really small stage. So I want to point that out from the standpoint of problem solving. You know, so often I hear people talking, well, you know, I don't have a lot of space to work in. I can't do a lot of cool stuff. That back wall of that booth is only 9.5 feet wide. So there was actually very, very little space to work. So the presentations consisted of obviously, talking to the crowd, talking about what kind of gear I was using. You'll notice I had the good fortune of being able to take Monet, my makeup artist. Many of you have seen Monet in my videos. So the crew in New York that showed up, they got to actually meet her and see her work. She did all the hair and makeup for the models that were there for the show for Olympus. And here's the light painting shot. We talked about light painting. This is a light painting shot that I did back in February at WPPI, and you can also see the light painting wand that I used. But I wanted to do stuff that was very, very different. So you could see how narrow the back of that stage is. I've got a one light setup. Everything that I did in this talk, it was with one Godox 8200 and a Savage Universal umbrella box. It's a 32-inch umbrella box. That was all we used for lighting. We did a bunch of light painting, and I'm not going to show you these shots yet because there's a video coming. That's the good news, okay? But I will let you see some of the tools that I used here just to get a sense. The little gadget that you see in my hand there with the LEDs, that's a gadget that just came out and it was shown off at the show. It's called Lumee, L-U-M-E-E. It is from the folks at Spiffy Gear. And I'll show you what they look like when we get going here. They're actually really, really cool. So overall, I'm not going to lie, it was just a ton of fun. It was a great group of people. People thought the light painting was really cool. Even had kind of a Star Wars wand thing going on there. Used a regular balloon gang from a dollar store. Just went to a dollar store, got a pack of balloons, used the balloon as a light painting tool. It just, bottom line, a ton of fun. But the thing that everybody was talking about, the thing that was super, super fun, in fact, Doug, who was here, Doug got to, hey, D-Mac, there you are, some more people that I got to say hi to at the show. So one of the things that was a lot of fun for me is I did, for my last picture of my talk, I did a shot with the Olympus Live composite that required the help of all the people that were at my talk. So instead of me describing, if you look close in the center of the frame, you can see there's a whole bunch of photographers acting like paparazzi, all clamored around the edge of the stage there, right? In fact, Doug's even in that shot. He's in there. So I want to show you guys a little video clip of how I took this picture, and then at the end, I'll show you the finished picture. So here's the video clip. This was done by, and I feel so bad because I don't know the young woman's name, but Rick Friedman, who is a very, very well-known photographer that speaks at so many of these events. This was done by his assistant, just with an iPhone, but it's awesome. So I'm going to let it play out. There is audio. You'll be able to hear the message. And then when we're done, I'll show you the finished shot. Here you go.
When I say flashes up, flashes up. When I say down, flashes down. You guys hold still. Sophia's going to hold still. And here we go. Here comes the flash. Awesome. Flashes up. And you're going to hold them. Don't wave them. Please don't wave them. Good. That's it. Awesome. I can't see a thing that's happening. Oh, we're doing okay. Good. That's it. Keep going. We're going to do a little more. Okay, flashlight's down in the back. Everybody hold still up here, though. Okay. Good. Awesome. And I'm going to come back up. Everybody can move. Let's see how we did. Thank you for your help. You all had a hand in creating this picture. That is my last message for you. So I talked to you about failure. Guys, thank you. You were all awesome. And here, because I picked on you, see me afterwards. I'll give you the box and the charger. That's yours, okay? All right. So guys, you can have a seat really quick. Sophia, thank you. You're all set. I'll take that. So seriously, my last message for you. Thank you, sir. Okay. Yes. Oh, the last message I have, I talked to you about failure, right? But I want to add one more piece in to kind of send you on your way so that hopefully you consider this. I mentioned early on in my talk the idea of collaboration. Now you just saw, a real brief idea with working with Monet and having somebody available. And by the way, if you want to shoot models and high-end portraits and you've never worked with a makeup artist, It's really not that hard. You just have to be willing to try. Go to my YouTube channel. There's a couple of videos about working with a makeup artist. It'll tell you how to find one. It'll tell you all the things you kind of need to know to talk to them about. But please, I don't care if you're a portrait shooter, wedding shooter, if you want to shoot fashion. Heck, I don't care if you want to go out and shoot landscapes and animals. Collaboration is part of what makes photography fun, and it's part of what makes your photography better. Right? There's no such thing as too much collaboration. You could be a wildlife photographer or a nature photographer. That collaboration might just be a matter of having a buddy to go out with a little friendly competition, right? That kind of drives you both. In the studio, it's a matter of having ideas. I spent way too much of my career thinking I knew it all. And I'm not proud of that. It was stupid. It was dumb. I believed only in my thoughts. And it took me a lot of years to wake up and realize I don't have all the answers, and other people have really, really great ideas, and the way you make that all work is to take those ideas and take your ideas, and as long as everybody's got a common goal of producing great images, you push those ideas together. So please, whatever you take away from the show, have fun. You don't have to follow, the only rules are physics, right? You don't have to follow all the other rules, but you do have to pick up the camera, you do have to shoot, because your best shot, it's your next shot. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate it. If you have questions, you can come on up. I'll do my best to answer them, okay? Thank you.
So the finished picture that came from that session, gang, is this one right here. So the camera that the young lady's holding, that is the new Olympus camera, the OMD EM5 Mark III. And the flashes that you're seeing going off are flashes that I was creating with the flashlight, as you saw me going around the room. So it was a lot of fun. It was a way to get people really involved in the presentation, but it was a great crowd. So for all of you that came out, for those of you that helped, especially that were part of the shot, I really, really appreciate it. Now, I want to tell you a true story. So, because, you know, so many of you are afraid of failure, afraid of making a fool out of yourself, afraid of things not going well. I want to share a couple personal stories of mine from this PhotoPlus, because this PhotoPlus actually has some great failure stories. So I had originally planned to do stuff that was going to require much more space than what the stage permitted, because I did not know that they had made the stage smaller. So at the last minute, I had to change a little bit of that. All good photography is problem solving, right? So I was feeling pretty good about my presentation as I traveled to New York last Wednesday, but I didn't have a finish. And I wanted to do something that would involve the audience, that would actually get people engaged in actually participating and helping me. So on the bus to New York, I thought of this idea of having people lift up their iPhones and create the little stars in the background. So we always do a rehearsal the day before the trade show starts to make sure that we have the audio stuff down and the lighting cues and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, to make sure that the ideas, especially with the light painting, to make sure that it was going to work, because otherwise I would have had to come up with a new presentation overnight if it didn't work. So Wednesday afternoon, we get to the hall, we set everything up, they get my audio check done, and I'm testing out my shots. My light painting's working fine. That's a good thing. I'm happy. And then we try the shot at the end. And so I gathered all the Olympus employees that were there and said, guys, I need your help. Come over to your phones. And I gave them the directions, and I just had them basically sitting where the audience would be sitting. And they did the phones, and it was horrible. It was an epic failure. So I left the hall, basically just telling them, I'll work it out. I'll come up with something. Don't worry. Had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to fix it, how I was going to change it. I figured I will just have to end my show with one of the cool light painting shots. And I had lots of light painting ideas, so it's like, okay. Thursday morning, I had to get up crazy early and head out for the photo walk that I did, and literally in the shower. So people ask, where do the ideas come from? Sometimes they just show up at weird times. In the shower, I was getting ready, I realized, duh. If I get a bunch of photographers to come up really, really close and get them in the shot, I can create the flashes. Bingo. So we tried it on Thursday, and it was okay. Then we did it again on Friday. It was better, and that's actually the picture that you saw. You saw the Friday version. And then we tried it again on Saturday where I added some color to it, but I actually like the Friday version better. So that's story one. Story two, for those of you that are afraid of public speaking, these two ideas will scare you to death. Or not ideas, but two situations. In the middle of my presentation on Friday, I am running around the stage, doing the light painting, doing my normal, chaotic Joe thing. And I realize as I'm talking to people, I can't find my little flashlights, the little ones that I was using to do the light painting. And I'm looking around on the stage, can't find them. Monet is standing right off to the side of the stage. So finally, I just said to her, it's like, Monet, I can't find my flashlights. Do you see them? Because I'm trying to keep the audience engaged. I'm trying to set up the lights for my next shot. Can't find them. At that point, one of my hands goes down along my leg. I had these cargo pants on that have pockets. And then I realized that I have one flashlight in each pocket on my leg. This is in front of the audience everywhere. So it's like, pull the flashlights out because they can hear me telling her, I can't find my flashlights, nothing, I'm wearing a microphone, so you can't hide what you're saying. And so you just roll with it. And then Saturday, I was setting up to do my presentation. There's a bunch of people there already. They're waiting to see it, the whole bit. And I set the camera up on a tripod. I use a tripod when I do those shows because of the live view. We shoot tethered. And if I'm just carrying the camera around on my shoulder, people are going to get motion sickness from the live view. So I put the camera on a tripod. I had everything set up, and I go to do a test shot, and the camera wouldn't fire. And it wouldn't fire. And then all of a sudden, it started firing randomly, and then I couldn't get it to fire. And I'm panicking. I'm like, my God, I'm about to do my talk in like 3 minutes, and this camera's malfunctioning. That morning, I had the camera cleaned because I had a clean and check team there. So I'm like, my God, did these guys mess with my settings? Like, what did they do? Because they're not supposed to change the settings. One of the guys that's sitting in the front row in the audience comes up because I ran over and I grabbed one of the tech reps from Olympus. I was like, I've got a camera issue. I need your help. He's up on stage. The two of us are trying to figure out why the camera won't fire. It's like, nothing's working. The guy in the front row comes up and he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, your lens cap's still on. You talk about dying. Because by this time, there's easily 50 people watching. They can see what's going on. They can see I'm panicked. So needless to say, the Olympus crew thought that was hysterical because I'm sure they will never let me live that down now. But with the lens cap on, the camera couldn't lock focus, hence it wouldn't fire. Everybody makes mistakes. I just made mine very publicly. But, bottom line, at the end of the day, you have fun. And you realize, but that's the thing. So I'm not saying, hey, go get in front of a couple hundred people and do dumb stuff. But the point is, at the end of the day, you're ultimately only judged on that last image. That image that you show to the world, right? It's how good is the work. It's not what it took to get there. It's not how you got there. That's the point, right? So you got to let yourself have fun with it, okay? So... all right, so that being said, let's talk about PhotoPlus. And I'm curious, for some of you that were at PhotoPlus, I would love it if you would type in some of your thoughts about the show in general. So I will tell you mine. Overall, PhotoPlus is a fun show for me in the sense that it's close to home. It's only 2 hours away. It's in New York. It is indeed probably the largest of all the trade shows, that are in the U.S., the photography-oriented trade shows. Over the last 4 to 5 years, it has been getting a little bit smaller every year, fewer vendors, et cetera. This year, companies like Magmod, companies like Think Tank, Manfrotto, none of those companies were represented, okay, at all. The big one that was a shocker, but I'll give you a little bit of backstory there, was Sony. Sony was missing at the show, but they were in New York. I'll explain that and talk about that separate. Some of the companies had smaller booths. There were some other, a couple new players, but not many. Canon's booth was trimmed down a little bit. Nikon's booth was actually not as big as it has been, but still pretty big. Fuji had a slightly bigger booth, and Their booth was slightly bigger though because they bought up some of the space that was left by the company that didn't show up. I'll get to that. But indeed, the shows are changing. The other thing that PhotoPlus did this year that was new is they dropped all of the educational track. There were no master classes or platform talks or any of that kind of stuff at all. Everything was in the trade show. That's it, except for the photo walks, right? But everything else was in the trade show. So the big kind of dirt, if you will, Sony at the last minute, and when I say last minute, like a couple weeks beforehand, pulled out of the show. By that time, they were already contractually, committed, so they had to pay money, right? But so they rented a warehouse that was like 2 blocks from the Javits Center, and they set up their trade show booth in the warehouse, and they did their trade show in the warehouse, like 2 blocks away. What a lot of people don't realize about these trade shows, and hopefully some things are going to change now, maybe. But it is really, really, really expensive for these companies to attend these trade shows. Even a small company, like a company like Hoodman, they had like an 8 by 8 foot booth. It wasn't even 10 by 10. It was like 8 by 8 on a corner in the trade show. That costs over $3,000 just for the booth space. And then if they need carpeting, they got to pay for carpeting. If they need stuff bought in, they got to pay you to bring the stuff in and set it up. They've got to pay for electric, you name it, all of it. Not to mention they have to pay for their staff to be there, hotel rooms, air travel, all that stuff. And then you scale it up to a company like Nikon, Canon, or Olympus, where they've got 30 or 40 of their own employees, plus this big booth, which means you have to hire audiovisual companies and all kinds of stuff. For the camera manufacturers, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to be there. Crowds are getting smaller, trade shows getting smaller. It's tough. It's tough for them to justify it. So Sony, I'll give them kind of credit with my fingers crossed. From the beginning, Sony has been a disruptor in the marketplace, and I'm not using disruptor as a bad word. I'm using it as a good word. They've been a disruptor. They've done things a little bit different. They have kind of bucked the system a little bit. And, one of 2 things, in my opinion, will happen as a result of what Sony did this year. One, and this is the option that I hope happens, the other camera manufacturers, the folks that run PhotoPlus, PDN, and Sony, will talk now and find a way to make it work better for all the camera manufacturers and the vendors, the smaller vendors too, lower costs, etc. I believe in the trade shows. I'm a big fan of the trade shows. But there's also a reality is that those trade shows started with my generation. PhotoPlus, I think, started in 1984, was the first one. That's my generation. That right there is enough to point out that if trade shows are going to thrive and continue, they have to realize that the generation that started them, my generation, or the old ones, in many cases we're moving on, they need to change them to meet the desires of the millennials, the Gen Xers, the Gen Zers. There's lots of marketing information and research that says those generations are much, much more experience-based. One of the things that was very evident at the show this year, the booths that were providing education had the biggest crowds, hands down, all the time. Whether it was the big ones like Nikon, Canon, and Olympus, or whether it was the smaller ones like V-Flat World or Tether Tools, the booths that were providing education, they're the ones that had the crowds and got the attention. So they need to make these things more experiential. So my hope is that this was a wake-up call for the industry, and it was a wake-up call for PDN, and that they all get together and they kind of try to work through this. The other thing that could happen is this could simply splinter the whole PhotoPlus trade show, and you have other manufacturers pull out. And if other manufacturers start pulling out, then the show completely loses its value and it just disappears. There have already been quite a few announcements for PhotoPlus, or excuse me, not PhotoPlus, Photokina coming up next year. A lot of major manufacturers are not going. Olympus isn't going to Photokina. The trade shows like Imaging USA and WPPI, I can tell you now that there are camera manufacturers that will not be attending those shows this year. They're going to be missing. So it's going to be a challenge. Torgier says here, trade shows are still tremendously powerful if you know how to bring a strong human element. Torgier, I completely agree. I mean, you're kind of mirroring what I'm saying here. The piece that I add to that to make my point is that they have got to pay more attention to the millennial aspect of it, and what millennials want, what their interest is, etc. If they don't do that, these things are going to struggle. They're going to struggle, big time. So, so that was the piece of PhotoPlus for me, honestly, that was kind of the biggest challenge, biggest disappointment. This was not a year with a lot of earth-shattering announcements. Tether Tools has their new wireless tool that's coming out, which is really cool. Olympus had the OMD EM5 Mark III, which is an awesome little camera, but that's not earth-shattering. It's not, oh my God. It definitely fills a niche. And there was some smaller stuff along the way. I will tell you there's a great article, and I'll share the link here with you guys. My buddy Brian at Photo Focus did this article about what he saw and what he loved at PhotoPlus. There's actually some pictures there from my fellow Olympus Visionary, Tracy McGlasky, from her photo walk. So, there's a cool monitor from BenQ. If you're a Fuji fan, they, of course, had the X Pro 3 there. Wacom's Mobile Studio, indeed, pretty neat. The Tether Tools Air Direct, which I mentioned, is, wireless transfer with any camera. Some bag stuff and that, but nothing that was like, boom, like, wow. So it's always a little disappointing when you don't have that, but, you also can't have overwhelming, earth-shattering stuff at every single show. So I really do. I hope that the vendors, the camera manufacturers, I hope that they will continue to put a lot more effort into the educational aspect. But if that doesn't happen, it'll be interesting to see, how trade shows do. And that's why I think we've seen in the last couple of years, there has been a lot of momentum building for smaller events like Shutterfest, events like the Pixel Fest in Cleveland, ClickCon, those types of things. I think we're seeing a lot of growth there because those events are more experiential, more opportunities to shoot, more opportunities to do hands-on learning. They still have a trade show element, but it's not all about the trade show. So anyway, that's my thoughts on PhotoPlus. For those of you that were there, let's see. Michael said, how did Sony communicate their location to the attendees? Would you have known if I had known Sony was offsite? Oh, so a couple of things, Michael. They had people standing out on the street with signs. They were doing all kind of advertising online about the Sony Creative Space like a week beforehand. They had their ambassadors walking through the trade show at PhotoPlus, poaching people, walking around with bags, handing them out to people and saying, hey, we're across the street if you want to see. They would walk around looking for people carrying a Sony camera, and they would talk to them. So they just, they were kind of, again, they were disruptive. DMAC, I agree. Sony's screwing things up. Yeah, I mean, DMAC, I'll be honest. I want to give Sony the benefit of the doubt yet. And it's not all about Sony, right? I mean, let's be really clear. This is about what do the other manufacturers do, and it's also about what does PDN do. That's really, really important. Sony has done a great job, again, of being a disruptor, of doing things different. They march to the beat of their own drum, and they've gotten a lot of good attention for it. You guys hear me all the time. As much as I like to stir the pot with, everybody's camera brands, come on, right? Sony's done a great job. Their cameras are great cameras. I've never said otherwise. I just don't like the ergonomics. That's fine. Just like I don't like Fuji's ergonomics. That doesn't make them bad cameras, right? So So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people, DMAC, that agree with you word for word, and I'm going to try and take the optimistic view for now, and hope that you know, hope that that will change. You know, Cody, is there any way that Sony was testing out having their own trade show? I mean, there might be. Look, don't get me wrong. I want to be really clear, guys. I don't have any inside information on what Sony did. I did not personally go to the Sony creative space. I kind of can't do that, right? I talked to a lot of people that were there. Believe me, there were executives from every one of the other camera companies, Olympus, Nikon, Canon, that went there, okay? Yeah, I mean, the thing you have to understand behind the scenes, gang, these camera companies, the employees, they don't get along. Like so many of these events that I go to, especially the dealer events or events like Shutterfest or Pixel Fest, what you guys don't understand is, you know, all day long, everybody's at their different table, at their different booth, and then at night, they all go out to dinner together. I've gone to many of these events where I've gone to dinner with the Panasonic reps and the Nikon reps and the Fuji reps, and, you know, they're all in the same business, right? So, yeah, I guarantee you, I know some of the Olympus executives went and checked it out. That's how I learned about what was going on, and I saw some pictures. But my understanding is essentially it was their trade show booth that they set it up in this warehouse. And it was brilliant because I'll tell you what, every time I walked past it going to or from my hotel, they had lines that were blocks long. So, you know, again, I give them a lot of credit for stirring it up. The real test is what will happen now, right? That's the real test. So we'll see. Okay. All right. Now let's do some Q&A here, right? Because I know we got some good questions in here. Got plenty of time, guys. Keep typing though. You can put more in. Let's see. So I'm going back to the beginning. From James. You have an EM1 Mark II, and I find that my battery drains quickly both in camera and your spares when not in use. Is anyone else having this problem? So, James, the first question I'm going to ask you is, are you using Olympus brand batteries or are you using aftermarkets? So I can tell you a couple of things. From my experience, I have had no problems with my batteries draining when not in use. In my camera bag at any time, I have 4 spare batteries between my EM1X and my EM1 Mark II. They're the same battery, right? I have them in the little Temba pouches, and I've had no problems because sometimes they'll sit in that bag for 2 months before they get used. And then I'll go through, you know, all 4 of them in a couple of days at a trade show or whatever. So I've had no problems with that aspect. As far as draining the batteries quickly in camera, any mirrorless camera. So let's be clear here, folks. This is something that will help all of you. I don't care what your brand is. Any mirrorless camera, you run the risk of draining your batteries very rapidly, and that is because you have an EVF, the electronic viewfinder. That's also running off the same batteries. So you have to remember that straight out of the box, a mirrorless camera has more battery demands than a DSLR does, okay? I'm just gonna grab one of those pouches here. I saw somebody just asked about the battery pouches, so I'll show you what I'm talking about. And they make a couple, I use the Tenba ones. They make a few different kinds, but the ones that I have are perfect for my Olympus batteries. This is what the pouch looks like. There's the side view, there's the back view. It's got a little belt clip. It's got the other hooks, you know, the Velcro clip, okay, that type of thing. And then inside, I've got 2 batteries for, by the way, I love the little, you know, words of wisdom there. It's got 2 batteries for the EM1 Mark II, and I'll show you what my little trick is. When I'm in the field and I'm working, the way you see the batteries in here now, so no contacts and just the dark, the blank side of it as opposed to that side, right? This tells me that these are fresh, unused batteries. If I swap these batteries out and put them in a camera, the batteries that come out of the camera are going to go into the pouch this way. So if I pick this pouch up by mistake and try to use these, as soon as I open it, I know, oh, these aren't charged, right? So just by flipping the battery around, that's my own little communication mechanism that tells me, you've already used those batteries. You need to charge them before you use them, okay? But yeah, so again, they're by Tenba. There's a couple companies that make little pouches like this. So it really depends on the type of battery you're using and that kind of stuff. I also have Think Tank, you know, and again, there's all kinds of different ones. Think Tank has a little one like this that I use for AA's. Holds 8 AA batteries, like so, folds up. That kind of stuff just makes life a whole lot more easier to organize in the bag. And since they're all kind of, you know, color coded, when I look into my bag, it's really easy to identify, you know, camera batteries, AA batteries, etc. Normally, these AA batteries would be in a lighting kit, but like when I get on a plane to go to Seattle on Friday, I can't put these AA batteries in my lighting kit, which is going to get checked. So it's going to travel in my backpack, which goes, you know, on the plane with me, right? So. But the other thing, James, so I got sidetracked there. I apologize. When you're working with an EVF, it's going to use more battery power. So one of the things that you have to be cognizant of is how long are you leaving that EVF turned on and how long are you previewing your images. So like with the EM1 Mark II, James, you've got the setting for record view, REC view, that determines how long does the image pop up on the screen after you shoot. I actually have that turned off most of the time so that I use it kind of like, you know, a DSLR. I'm only going to chimp if I need to chimp, right? Otherwise, if I'm not shooting with live boost, I'm seeing the finished image in the viewfinder. So I kind of don't need to see the record view afterwards unless I want to examine the image more. So part of making your batteries last longer is making sure that you don't just have that electronic viewfinder on or the LCD on for unnecessarily long periods of time. If you're able to limit that a little bit more, you're going to find your batteries are going to last longer. So, you know, first thing I would say to you is make sure that you're using Olympus brand batteries, absolutely. And then it's a matter of making sure that you are, don't know why that turned off. Make sure you're working with Olympus brand batteries, and then make sure that you're not kind of abusing the batteries by leaving your EVF and all that kind of stuff turned on for too long. So I would start there, okay? All right, scrolling on down here from Lynn B. Great presentation at PhotoPlus, by the way. Thank you, Lynn. I really, really appreciate it. So let's see here. Scrolling down, I want to try and get back into the meat of these questions here. I know you guys had a bunch. Ajax, you're going to make it to Dallas, 2 weeks. Awesome, looking forward to it, man. Should be a fun time. The venue that we're at is Slate Studios, I think it is. It looks really, really cool. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting there and getting to play in there for a day. So, all right, let's see here. Sean Price, hey Joe, can you go over your basic light setup with the 8200s? Sean, I don't have a basic light setup. So I want to help you, but I also want to let you know that's one of those questions like I really hate. A basic light setup implies that you do the same thing every time. I don't. I try not to. Doing the same thing every time is not that creative, right? So if you go back through my videos, you'll see a lot of what I guess you could say are my basic light setups, so to speak. In other words, there are certainly certain light arrangements that I use more than others. That happens. But I don't have kind of a basic setup. What I would encourage you to do, there's a video on my YouTube channel. Let me see if I can track this one down for you here really quick. I have a video on my YouTube channel that is called A Simple Approach to Portraits of Flatter. Oh, and by the way, folks, I forgot to tell you, the cool news is about New York, for those of you that didn't make it to New York, it's a bit of an awkward camera angle because it was done with what's called an IP camera that the AV people use to monitor the stage. But I have video of my talks in New York with audio that you can actually hear and understand. It doesn't have all the crowd noise and all that chaos. So I'm not going to get to edit it until next week after I get back from Seattle. But the great part is there will be video from the New York presentations. So I was like super, super excited by that. The company that Olympus uses for all the audiovisual stuff at the show is a company called Fusion. They are amazing. Big shout out to Michael. If you're watching, he is just incredible. So yes, he was able to record all of my presentations, get me great audio. So yes, I'm quite stoked by the fact that I'm going to have that to work with. Okay, but let me see if I can get you this link, Sean, because in this video, it's actually from a camera club talk that I did. Okay, and what it will show you is a very basic lighting setup for portraits that I guess you could say is kind of my go-to lighting arrangement, if we could get away with calling it that. But again, that's just a it's just like a beginning. It's like a starting point. I put the link in the chat window there. It's definitely not something that I do all the time. Like, so if you can give me something maybe a little bit more specific, Sean, I will gladly try to help you out and give you, a little bit more detail there. Okay. All right. So let me just scroll back up there and find my spot where that question was. There we go. So scroll back down here. There was the 200s. GNAP Studios, terrific at PhotoPlus. I think you were the only speaker who could hold the audience attention for a full hour. Yes. Well, Doug, thank you really very much. I appreciate that. The thing that was interesting about that, I made the fatal mistake of asking Olympus after WPPI if I could have a whole hour so that I could actually teach like a full lesson. And they were great. They gave me an hour. They actually gave me more than an hour. But they gave me that hour at lunchtime. And then the booth also had less seating than it had before. So I was like, okay, great. I asked for an hour, and now I've got to keep people engaged for a whole hour on their feet at lunchtime. But it worked out great. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. But I'm glad you were there. Thank you. So, and let's see here. Oh, Perluigi. Hey, this is big news, man. Congratulations. Nothing to do with photography. It will have a lot to do with your photography. Pleased to announce that your second daughter is born. Well, congratulations, man. Glad to hear that. We will look forward to photos in the TogChat Facebook group, okay? All right, so FN89. How far have you pushed your ISO for the EM1 Mark II in a dimly lit environment with no flash where you get an acceptable image? So your question was great until you got to that last part, because that's the wild card, FN89, right? I mean, define acceptable image. If you're a pixel peeper, I've gotten to the point, I'm not gonna lie, I've gotten to the point, like, if you're a pixel peeper, don't buy Micro Four Thirds, just screw it, don't bother. Don't bother, right? Because if you're a pixel peeper, you've got the wrong, in my mind, in my opinion, you got the wrong mindset about photography, right? You guys have heard me talk about this numerous times. Forever, film had grain. Then digital technology came along, and there was no grain, but there was this stuff called noise. And in the early days, like the late 1999s, 2000s, 2001, 2002, like the Nikon D1, noise sucked. It was just ugly. It was horrible. There was no such thing as acceptable noise at all. And then by the time we got to like 05, 06, 07, 08, we kind of crossed this line because the technology was getting a lot better. The noise was getting better. The ISO capabilities were getting better. And then in the industry, we crossed this line where suddenly you're not allowed to have any texture. And I'm not going to call it grain, and I'm not going to call it noise, right? So I'm using texture as the word that covers both of those. But we crossed this line where suddenly you're not allowed to have any texture in your images. Why? So here's the thing. If texture bothers you, FN89, then honestly, Micro Four Thirds, don't bother. Just don't bother. It'll make your life a lot easier. It simply will. Go spend 3 times more money, go carry 3 times more weight, and you'll have pure images with no texture. Knock yourself out. If you learn that photography requires light, like all of this dumbass debate about shooting in no light with Micro Four Thirds or full frame or this or that, guys, the word photo comes from the Latin light. Real photographers know how to find light. I can't tell you how many conversations I had at PhotoPlus from photographers like, yeah, you know, I got to be able to like work in the dark and I don't want this, I don't want that. It's like, my God, you don't want to do anything except press the button and have a great picture. That's like lazy crap, man. Go somewhere else. Like, don't talk to me. I practice the art of photography. That means find light. So the fact of the matter is, I have shot images. You folks have seen images from me. Go look at my Facebook right now. I have images from the the EM5 Mark III, the new little camera, ISO 6400. I defy you to tell me that the noise is objectionable in those images. I defy you to tell me that. Because it's not. Because it's barely there. Because there's less noise than I would have had with ISO 400 film back in the day, or today for that matter, if I go pick up ISO 400 film. So to tell me that's objectionable, that's just ridiculous. I like texture in an image. I like an image to have a little bit of mood to it. Now, I get it. Millennials, Gen Xers, man, they want everything so pure. They want to be able to look at 3 pixels out of an image and have it tack sharp. Well, you know what? That makes all the sense in the world. Spend $4,000 for a camera body, lug around, triple the weight, triple the size, all that crap, and then size it down to 1080 and put it on Instagram. That's intelligent. Any moron that's doing that is failing at business. Simply failing at business. Spending obscene amounts of money, busting your back, for what? There's no point. In fact, if you guys looked close, you can go back and watch the video later. In one of those shots I showed you from PhotoPlus, above the screen, above me on the TV screens, there was a close-up image of my billboard. A really, really close-up image of my billboard. Shot with micro four thirds, tack, razor tack sharp. No noise, no grain, no BS. Boom. And I can tell you there was no noise reduction done. So, yeah, for me, I have no problem going 6400 or even higher. It depends on what the shot is. But photography needs light, gang. I've got to figure out a way to actually prove this to people and get people on board with this concept. I really do, because I'm not going to lie to you. I was blown away by how many people asked me that similar question at PhotoPlus. It's like, why is everybody so convinced that they need to be able to take pictures by candlelight? Photography requires light. Find the damn light, or make the light. Period. Right? And I will point out to you, as I've pointed out before, go to Google, type in the phrase, iconic photographs. Look at the images that come up. For you pixel peepers that worry about noise, be careful, it's going to give you heartburn. But I will point out to you that all of those images that we hold up and regard as some of the most amazing images ever created, they got a crap ton of noise. You don't hear people looking at them and saying, oh, too noisy. That's not iconic. It's about what's in the picture. That's what people care about. It's about the emotional connection. That's what photography is about. It's not about pixel peeping. Come on, please. You're better than that. All right, I'm off that soapbox. Next, here we go. Let's see here. What I got? That was Perluigi, FN89's question there. More guys that were at New York. Thank you so much, man. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm not gonna lie, like, it's a lot of fun to get to meet you guys. I love it when I get to talk to you guys and you know, see all these people that are watching, and it's just awesome. It really is. So I really do appreciate that all of you took the time to say hi and all that kind of stuff. David, have you ever used or had any luck using speed boosters like Metabones to get some extra light in low light conditions where flashes are not acceptable? I have not. I wouldn't. But you can. I know people that use them. So I've mentioned this before. I came up through photography at a time period where adapters and 2x converters were fairly new technology, and they sucked, like sucked big time. So you learned really quickly, don't use that stuff. Today, the technology has come light years ahead. From the standpoint of sharpness, capabilities, all that kind of stuff, they're great. You know, obviously you buy a cheap adapter, you get what you pay for, right? But there are great adapters out there and they totally work. Here's the thing. to me, for the money that I'm going to spend and for having that extra connection, those speed adapters are not giving me enough of a boost to make it worth my while. So ultimately, David, it really depends on the circumstances. In my opinion, it depends on the circumstances that you're talking about. If you're looking to do it kind of for generalized situations, then I would say, no, don't waste your money. If you have a very specific situation where you know that you're going to pick up enough with that speed booster to get the job done, okay. But most speed boosters aren't going to give you more than 1, maybe 2 stops most. So that's, that's kind of the challenge. Eric, thank you so much for the super chat. I'll get your question in just a sec here. For a bit of texture in our eyes, I see it. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. So yeah, David, I mean, honestly, what I would recommend, especially if you're in the US or if you're in a major metropolitan area in Europe, try one first, or buy it, like, I hate to say this, but buy it from a place where you can return it. If your local camera retailer will let you return it, great. If not, go to Amazon or go to B&H or someplace like that where you know that you have a decent return policy and try it out. See if it's going to get the job done for you. But yeah, all in all, I'm not a super, super big fan of them. Okay. By the way, guys, I mentioned Lumi before. This is a Lumi. So down here at the bottom, this is the battery setup. This is the base of the LED lights, and then this is the controller. So basically, you turn it on, and it's got various brightnesses that you can set, and then you can change the colors. And then there's also effects that you can do, and I'm not real well versed on how the effects work, but there's also effects that go with it. And then they're basically like a slap bracelet. So you can stick them on a light stand. What's really good about these things, I mean, obviously, you're not going to light a portrait, so to speak, with these, but these are great for doing accent lighting. These are great for being able to add some color accent in a scene. Actually, really pretty cool. So anyway, that's what a Lumi is for those of you that saw that and were wondering. Okay, and I have some video stuff that'll be coming up that'll show you a little bit more of those. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Rob Fuzz, you made the thumbnail. Awesome, man. Okay. Let's see. DMAC, you're going to be at WPPI? Awesome, man. Cool. I'm doing a masterclass at WPPI. So that's part of the educational track. I'm not sure what Olympus is doing yet for WPPI, so fingers crossed. I'll be doing a booth presentation, but I haven't heard anything specific yet. So, but I definitely will be there. In fact, I just signed my contract yesterday, so I'll be doing a master class. So I'm looking forward to that. So let's see here. George A, sorry for running last time, had to go to work, but you asked about portraits with a 200mm because you've seen a lot of photographers on YouTube saying they shoot with the 70-200 at 200 to blur the background. Didn't I do a rant about that? Somebody help me. I could have sworn I did a rant about that. George, to do that as a rule is stupid. So those photographers are stupid for making you think that that's a good habit. Can you do it? Sure. But the fact of the matter is, George, if you understand depth of field, I don't need to shoot at 200mm to blur the background. Even with micro four thirds, I don't have to shoot at 200mm to blur the background. There's a lot of ways to blur a background, right? So I'm not going to do the rant again, but here's my advice to all of you, coming from the guy on YouTube. Stop. Stop, number one, watching a bunch of photographers on YouTube. Stupid. Because every photographer works a different way. And you think that you're learning more because you're doing that? No, you're not. You're getting a lot of crap shoved up in your head. And what you're not doing is you're not going out and you're not trying it. So here's the point, George. Like, the way to test this question is not to ask another photographer, hey, do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea? Because any photographer that you ask, not just Joe, they're going to give you their opinion based on what they do. Well, you already know that I don't shoot portraits at 200mm. So why ask me? If you think it's a good idea because you watch these YouTube photographers, then why not put a 70-200 on your camera, or put a 200 on your camera, or hell, go put a 300 on your camera. and try it and see what you think. And here's what you're going to realize right out of the box. Hell, you could shoot portraits with a 600 millimeter if you want. You just need a pair of walkie-talkies because you can't communicate with your subject. So if you're going to shoot a portrait, be able to interact. You want to be a couple feet away. I can still get a blurry background a couple feet away. So it's a gimmick. Sure, there's people on YouTube that have done it with 300 millimeters, 600 millimeters. Didn't Manny Ortiz just do one with a 900 millimeter or something recently? I don't know what focal length it was. It's like, yeah, him and Irene Rudnick. I mean, they couldn't even hold the damn thing still. So, come on, right? So it's great entertainment, but you don't need that to get a blurry background. There's more than one way to get a blurry background. That's the more important lesson that you ought to learn. But if you see something on YouTube and you think it's a good idea, don't take the guy's word for it. Don't take my word for it. I'm sharing my experience with you. You always hear me label if I'm sharing an opinion, but the only way any of it holds any value for you is if you go pick up your camera and try it. Period. You don't learn the stuff by watching videos, gang. You just don't. You got to pick up the camera. You got to shoot. Okay? Just saying. So there's no way to shortcut that. So George A, so you thought you could use your kit telephoto to do so since you don't own an 85 or something in that range. So George, tell me, what is the focal length? Let me see if he came back in down here. What is the focal length of your kit lens? Because that's really the test question, right? If you're talking a 200 millimeter and that's all you own, George, then go for it. But if you have a shorter lens and you're going to use that 200 millimeter just because some guy on YouTube did it, no. Okay? It is very true. The best lens for any project is the one you have, right? So follow up to that, Lord R here. What's the best lens for street photography? 35 millimeter or 50 millimeter? Depends on what you have, Lord. Because if it was me, I'd use a 24 millimeter if I'm a full frame shooter. Or if I was going to go out with Olympus, I would use the 7-14 zoom. Maybe the 17 millimeter. So that's the equivalent of a 34 millimeter. Or in full frame, it's the equivalent of a 14-28 millimeter. I know street photographers that work with 200 and 300 millimeters. So there is no best. It depends on what is your style. Plus, we're talking street photography. So right out of the box, are you a street photographer that's going to interact with your subjects? Or are you a street photographer that wants to be a voyeur and photograph them from across the street and not interact? What do you want to do? Right? So for me, I'm going to interact. If I'm doing street, I'm going to interact. I'm going to shoot up close, wide angle, so that when you see the picture, just like now, you feel like you're right here, face to face, interacting. So for me, yeah, it's all about the wide angle for something like that. But there is no best. So, okay. John Broderick, how do you use or recommend back button focus? I don't use it. Don't recommend it. I hate it. It's stupid. It's unnecessary. Now, I just drove a whole bunch of photographers right off the deep end when I said that. For my work, simple fact of the matter is I've never lost an image because I used the front button. I've lost images because I'm an idiot. I've lost images because I wasn't prepared. I've lost images because I wasn't paying attention. Have I ever lost images because the camera's too damn slow because of that button? Oh, come on, really? No. Because it's funny, most of the people that fuss about the back button focus, they're not making their living with a camera. Just saying. Not all, but most. Hey, if it works for you, use it. But is it gonna like, oh my God, make your photography better? No, guys, it's not. We're splitting, that's like pixel people. We're splitting fractions of a second. If you're doing your job as a photographer and paying attention to your subject and anticipating the action, those fractions of a second ain't making a bean's worth of difference. So, okay. So yeah, that's a challenge. So let's see, Jacob, if you're shooting a 200 millimeter, you need a super long working distance anyway, reducing your depth of field. Yeah, actually, and he went on to add increasing the depth of field. Yeah, Jacob, I mean, the premise of working with the 200, to get shallower depth of field, it's not entirely wrong. It's just not practical really from the communication standpoint. Honestly, that's the biggest, the biggest problem. So, hey, Adam, How you doing, Adam? So Mike Zupanik, I found YouTube videos are the best for getting ideas. AKA, this looks cool, but I want to try it. And Mike, that's exactly what you should be doing. So, and believe me, guys, for my YouTube videos, I hope that you use them for one of two things. So not this TogChat, but the regular tutorials, either to learn about a technique that you're having a hard time with, or learn about something like the inverse square law. The inverse square law will be the same now as it is 6 years from now, as it is 10 years from now. It's not going to change. It's physics, right? So it's either using the videos to help you learn a technique, or using the videos to help spark an idea, like some of my DIY stuff or that type of stuff. But and look, guys, the photographers that I'm picking on when I say this, I love these guys, because I do. I saw some of them at PhotoPlus, talked to them, had a blast with. Oh, by the way, I'll have to tell you who I saw at PhotoPlus. But look, watching these videos where one photographer challenges another photographer, or they go out with some like ridiculously big lens and see what they can do, I'm sorry, gang, you're wasting your damn time. As long as you understand that it is simply a matter of entertainment when you watch them do that, if you've got that kind of time and you can spend that kind of time to be entertained, then God bless you, good luck. I mean, seriously, I mean that sincerely. But please, 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 please don't think that you are learning something when you watch a 10-minute or a 15-minute video of 2 or 3 photographers or 4 photographers challenging each other or goofing around or doing crazy stuff. Don't think you're watching that and learning something that is going to be of use to you. If anything, all you're doing is learning, my God, please be smart enough not to go do that. And you need 15 minutes to learn that lesson? I don't think so, right? So come on, it's like, just at least be honest with yourselves. All that YouTube time is not making you a better photographer. YouTube will not make you a better photographer. It is a resource. Use it as such, and then go pick up the damn camera. Put in the work. So many people, they want to get better, so they watch and watch and watch and watch and watch, and they never get better. And then they get frustrated, and then they give up. How sad. All because they were too damn lazy. Because it's easy to pick up that stupid phone and watch a video. It's hard work to get off your ass, put on that camera gear, and go shoot, and fail. And then figure out, what did I do wrong? How do I make it better? That's work. Just is, right? So, Chris Roble, which lens are you using for your video chat right now? You like that? Like, believe it or not, guys, this is a GoPro. I started using it as a second camera a couple weeks ago, and everybody went nuts over it. So I thought, you know what? That's easy. Why not do that instead of tying up one of my Olympus cameras? So yeah, it's GoPro. Well, whatever the latest is, what is the latest? An 8? This is a 7. So it's not the very, very latest. It's like one right before that. It's a 4K. I'm just giving you a 1080 feed, but it's a 4K camera. Super simple. Plugs right into do I have my Cam Link? Yeah, so I plugged the GoPro into one of these, an Elgato Cam Link. It's a USB connector. So HDMI. So it's mini HDMI out of the GoPro into regular HDMI into this. And then I use a piece of software called Ecamm Live. That's what you are seeing this feed sent out over. Just makes it really, really easy. And yeah, it kind of works out good. Plus, I like to wave my hands a lot, so just do that, right? So, all right, scrolling back up here. So I did that one, did the back button focus. Let's see. Ajax, I'm attending an event this weekend, which would be fun to have a camera for. Thing is, the D850 with a 70 to 200 millimeter weighs a ton after just an hour of walking around. I may just use my smartphone. Yeah, Ajax, you and I have had this conversation before when you went to Cuba and you took 2 cameras and regretted it because they were both heavy Nikons. I have one word for my response, and I'm not even going to speak that word, Ajax. I'm just going to point. Right. So anyway, have fun at your event with your heavy camera or your smartphone, whichever. So let's see. Let's see here. Jacob, Don't know if it's out of line or not, but I found that while micro Four Thirds sensors might have more noise than large sensors, Olympus grain is definitely, in my humble opinion, prettier. And this is coming from chemistry. So actually, Jacob, I think you're spot on, like truly. If I say that, people right away are like, well, he's an ambassador, right? But it's true. The Olympus noise, it's very film-like, very film-like. But look, I want to be clear, as much as, and FN89, I know that, like, I really went off on him, but I want to be clear about this. Look, and when I do my whole diatribe about noise and about how we kind of cross this point where you're not allowed to have any texture, that, hey, at the end of the day, right, it is a matter of preference. The world evolves. While I remember when film had really bad, obnoxious grain, especially if you were doing like Tri-X and push processing to a higher ISO. Now that we have the option to not have any noise at all or any texture, yeah, it's logical that there would be people that like that. And I do respect that. I do. But at the same time, I personally like having the texture. So, at the end of the day, and that's why I started my answer before with the idea that, hey, look, if you're going to pixel peep noise, then don't buy micro Four Thirds, because there's going to be some texture, right? There's just going to be. When you guys look at my images online, you're not seeing it. And obviously, that's not the only judge, right? But I'm just saying, the majority of the work that all of us do these days, it's going onto a computer, where you're not going to notice that stuff in the first place. When you print it, not going to notice it, okay? Even on that big billboard that is printed 48 feet wide by 14 feet tall, there's no discernible noise or grain on that billboard. It's kind of just one of those things. But I do want to be clear. I should have said this before. I respect the idea that there are some people that simply like the idea of having an image that's just so pure, it's got nothing to it. But indeed, for those people, yeah, you need to be using a full frame camera, or even be using, like the Fuji 100 megapixel, whatever. Jacob, don't tell me you're a Tri-X man, T-Max. Jacob, I'm an old dude, man. T-Max, what the hell? That's like for kids, okay? Yeah, man, I learned in Tri-X back in the day. I learned when there were only 3 black and white films. So this is before there was Ilford. You had Tri-X, Plus X, ISO ASA, 125, and then you had Panix, which was ASA 32. That was it. So yeah, back when I learned, that was it. Okay. So Baby Doll 3200, my first time on TogChat. Whoa, welcome. I hope you didn't come in the middle of my rant. Probably your last time on TogChat. So you have a 50, a 24 to 120, a 7200, a 24 to 70, which is a good lens for photographing babies. Honestly, every single one that you mentioned, truly. So it depends on, number one, your favorite lens. Number two, it depends on the settings that you're going to shoot. A setting, not camera settings, but the setting that you're going to shoot at. Are you able to get really close? Do you need to back up? Are you shooting a close-up of the baby? Or are you shooting like the baby in a setting kind of thing? So, I mean, literally the sincere answer, Baby Doll 3200, whichever lens you like out of that set. So I would say probably the one that you want to avoid if you can is the 70 to 200, just because it's a bigger, heavier lens and you have to back up a little bit more, right? With the baby, you usually want to try and get physically, you want to be a little bit closer, but you could shoot the baby just fine with a 7200 too. So any of those honestly would work. So my advice would be, if this is something that you're kind of starting to dabble with and you want to try shooting babies, if you can, as long as the baby's behaving well and tolerating what you're doing, try and change your lenses in the middle and try working with different lenses to see which you like. Don't let some other photographer say, yes, you should do it this way. That's the best lens, because what you're asking about is a creative choice. So you actually need to try the different, variations. And I'll be honest with you, what I would recommend that you do, Baby Doll, is a little bit of practice in advance. It's super, super easy. You don't have to have a baby. Find a stuffed animal. Literally, or for that matter, if you're looking at shooting babies as a thing, like you want to start shooting babies, maybe go into business doing it, go on Amazon and order like a baby dummy, like or a toy or a doll or something, and just practice. Practice your lighting, practice your camera angles, practice how you're going to wrap the baby and do all that kind of stuff. Practice, practice, practice. It's the best way to do it. But that way, you can mix in and out all the lenses, boom, and go there. So, okay. All right. So, John Hamby started photography in 1972. I got you beat by 1 year. How's that? Okay. 71 is when I bought my camera. I was 11 years old. What I just see here, Jacob Van Dam. I'm 33, so I barely remember when film was the only option. Oh yeah, man. No wonder you would be T-Max. You're still wet behind the ears, dude. Come on. So yeah, it's all about that Tri-X, man. So let's see here. Scrolling back up. Let's see where I left off. Got that one. Scrolling back. I got Mike's question. I got Jacob's question. Here we go. Scrolling back up. I did the street photography question. I got Ajax's question. Let's see here. So, all right, cool. FN89, I hope you're still here. Sorry, I missed your response. So FN89 is the guy that I gave a hard time about pixel peeping and low light, right? So he went on to tell me he's shooting a burlesque show tonight. It was a last minute gig and I haven't shot an event like this before. Awesome. So let me tell you how back in the day, right, when indeed we could only go so high in the ISO and that kind of stuff. Let me tell you how we would deal with that. Because when I became a newspaper photographer, you had Tri-X film. That was the fastest black and white film that you had available. And you would push the ISO on that to like 1600. That's about as high as you would go. So like, everybody wants to be able to shoot at 6400 ISO, 3200 ISO, 2400 ISO. We still took pictures at 1600 ISO. And the world didn't end. And we never walked into a scene and said, well, we can't shoot this, and walk out. We took pictures. And they turned out. And it's amazing. We still documented the world, right? So, but what you had to do is you had to learn to look for the light better. So obviously, you're going to go do a burlesque show. So if this is like a small-time burlesque thing, that means likely, in all good likelihood, it's not going to have great lighting, right? But let's define that great lighting scenario. What that means is that in some situations, like you've got a stage, some parts of the stage, the light might be really good. Other parts of the stage, the light might really suck, right? All the light may be really, really close to the stage, which means it's creating heavy shadows and that kind of stuff. The shadow problem exists no matter what ISO you shoot. So how do you solve those things? You can't use a flash because it's a live performance and I don't want you popping flashes off. Plus, when you use the flash, you lose all the colors, right? You have to be selective. You have to pay. Hey gang, I'm back. I don't know what the heck happened there. I completely lost you guys. So I apologize. We are definitely not on the camera that we're supposed to be on, but let me see if I can get these cameras switched back and we'll finish up here. And if not, we'll, there it is. We're back. Wow, that was weird. So, sorry, I got bounced by YouTube, and then when I came back on, I could not get the cameras going here. All right, so, wait, GoPro needs juice. Yeah, no, GoPro's on AC power, so it's doing good. Where was I? I completely, oh, the burlesque show. So let's just say that you've got a situation where like only part of the light, or part of the stage is well lit, and the other parts aren't. So obviously you're not going to do your shooting when they're not in the well-lit stage, parts of the stage. You're going to wait until they come into the center. If you've got a situation where all the light's really close to the stage and it's high, well, then what you're going to do is you're going to look for those moments where the performers lift their chin just a little bit. If they lift their chin and look up, you've got better light on the face, right? So, you know, back in the day, so to speak, what we would have to do is we would have to do a little bit more kind of paying attention to watch for those moments where the performer would come into light, the light was, you know, the best, etc. But that's what it involves, okay? All right, so let me scroll back here. I know I had a couple more. Let's see. Life's beautiful. Saw you at PhotoPlus on Thursday. You were there, but you didn't say hi. Oh no. So yes, I cut off the top of the model's head. Yep. Let's see. And let's see. Eric Fisher, the B&H booth was full of people looking for a big deal, of course. Had a big turnout at the booth where you could take your own shots of the models. Oh yeah, all the booths where you could shoot the models always had a big crowd, especially like the Best Buy. If you saw the models that were like body painted into animals and stuff, that was just like really, really cool. Peter Hurley was there. Yep. Peter Hurley always has his booth like really close to the Westcott booth, so they're like right in the same row there. So the Westcott crew was there, and the Headshot crew, all that. So yep. Let's see. Missed some of the big name speakers. So interestingly enough, Hurley was there. Lindsay Adler was not there. I don't think Nicole Isaacs or Kirk Tuck were there either. I don't know why. So Canon had an interesting group of speakers. They didn't have their normal speakers. So, oh, and here, I told you I would tell you about this guy, but Michael asked the question, how is Ken Wheeler? Ken Wheeler was awesome. As goofy as it sounds, that was honestly one of the highlights of the show for me, was actually having an opportunity to meet Ken face-to-face, talk with Ken a little bit. I am thrilled for him, and I am very happy for him that he was able to make it to PhotoPlus. He did a little bit of work for Fuji. I mean, a little bit of work, actually, literally worked for Fuji at the show. Not as an ambassador. He actually did some work by handing out things and stuff like that. But it was great to see him. It was great to be able to see him in person, talk for a few minutes. You know, again, Ken is a special character. Not for everybody. I have an amazing amount of respect for the depth of his technical knowledge. So yeah, it was cool to get to meet him. So, Owen Trainer, will I be speaking about the OMD EM5 Mark III or doing a final review? So I'm not going to. I'm not doing a straight up video on the EM5 Mark III, and I'll be honest with you. There's two reasons why. Reason number one, I don't do gear reviews, right? I never have, not for cameras anyway, and I don't want to start. I did a video about the EM1X when it came out because I was very excited about that, and you know, took a lot of grief because by that time I was an ambassador and people were just like, you're just shilling it. And it wasn't a review. I was very clear. It's like, look, this is my opinion of the camera. I will tell you this, and if you follow me, by the way, Owen, make sure you follow me on Facebook, because on Facebook I have a series of posts that I did last weekend about the EM5 Mark III. So this is it with the 12-100. You'll notice the lens is bigger than the camera. How awesome is that? Like, look how tiny that camera is. Okay, there's my hand. there's the camera, right? Just like Donald Trump, really big hands. Kidding. Anyway, so I posted a bunch of images on Facebook that I shot with this. Olympus gave it to me right before I went to PhotoPlus, so I spent a day chasing my grandkids around with this thing. I'll tell you what, I actually love it. I had no interest in this camera. For my photography, when I saw the specs, when they made the announcement and all that kind of stuff, I was like, ah, yeah, that's nice. It's a new Olympus camera, but it's like, it's a low-end camera. This camera's awesome. It's got a 20 megapixel sensor, just like the EM1 Mark II, just like the EM1X. It does the live composite. It's got a lot of the pro-end features. It even has some of the newer features that got built into the EM1X, like the bulb settings up on the top, so you can access live time and live bulb and live comp all right from the top instead of having to dial down through all the shutter speeds. The size is awesome. It's the first OLED EVF in an Olympus camera. I actually love it. This is my new backup camera. I refuse to give it back. I was kind of hoping they'd give me a black one. I'm into the black cameras, but yeah, I'm happy with this. And I may wind up getting one anyway at some point. This is actually, you can see it still says it's a sample, so it's not even a production model yet. But I'm actually incredibly impressed with this camera. It amazes me what Olympus is able to continue to do with small cameras. Even the image stabilization, they redesigned their image stabilization system, which is the best in the industry. Hands down, best in the industry. It's not a debatable thing, it's tested. They redesigned it to fit in the smaller camera body, and you still get 5.5 stops of image stabilization, which is just amazing. So yeah, Owen, I really like it. I'm very impressed with it. So I definitely, if you have any questions, I mean, don't hesitate to follow up with me like on Facebook or that. I'll gladly do my best to answer them. But I'm not planning a video on it. So Sheldon, what was the name of the flashlight brand that I'm using? Or it is Nightcore. So obviously they don't come with a blue tape on them. This is the flash. See, they're quite bright. That's what it looks like. There's the model number, Nightcore P1GTS. This particular one, it's like a $100 flashlight, I'll let you guys know. It's 1,800 lumens. So it has multiple power settings. So there's the lowest. It's got multiple power settings, and it does strobe, okay? So you can do a lot with it as far as the light painting stuff does. And then the accessories and the tools that I were using, they were from a company called Light Painting Brushes. And you'll see more about that from me in a video. I'll be doing all the stuff in a video coming up, so you'll be able to learn a little bit more about that. Okay? All right, gang. So did I talk to Ken about his Micro Four Third ran? No, didn't see that. I didn't see Matt Granger. I didn't see Fro. No loss there, trust me. But yeah, so it's time. I'm overtime. It's now 7:34, so you know the drill. That's what is it, 188 minutes before next week. So I will be here next week. I'm off to Seattle this weekend. Then I come back for a couple days, and I'm off to Dallas. And then I get a break for the holidays. And December 1st, 12/1. Keep that date in the back of your mind. You don't have to put it in your calendar yet, but some cool stuff coming. I got some news, excited about something I'm going to be able to start doing and kind of releasing into the world at that point. So more to come on that. But in the meantime, gang, seriously, number one, for all of you that made it out to PhotoPlus, thank you so much. It really is cool to get to see these, to see the people that watch my videos and see the people that chat with me here every week, to see you in person. Some of you, it's become like an annual thing for us to, get together, do our selfies, all that kind of stuff. So really, I appreciate it. You have no idea how great it makes me feel. For the rest of you, thank you for being here tonight. Please go pick up your cameras, shoot something, whatever you do, have fun. And of course, most importantly, remember these.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.